All right. Today here with Jeremy Heffner with Heffner Inspections. So we got the joy of meeting. Well, we got to play pickleball the other day.
We did. We played pickleball. Yes.
Got to meet Jeremy playing pickleball, and then also introduced with mutual friend Austin, who does our content.
Yes.
And so got Jeremy on today. Wanted to get Jeremy on and talk through just one, get to know his story, and then two, get to understand like what goes into home inspections. I figured we'd kick it off. What is the craziest thing you've ever seen and had to put into a home inspection report?
So we kind of talked a little bit about it before, but I would say, I don't know. I don't want to miss some good stories, but
Yeah.
but I think the craziest thing I've ever seen is just homeowner additions to the original structure. So it was one of my first inspections I'd done. It was the first month I'd been doing this, and the home had 3 additions, basically on all sides but the front.
Oh my gosh.
And they were all done by the homeowner. And I mean, there may have been duct tape and glue used in certain areas. So it's like, it's pretty easy actually when it's that bad to write it up, just because everything's wrong. But it's like, the crazier part is it doesn't discourage people.
That was my question.
Yeah, no, doesn't discourage them at all. I'm like, this isn't done properly. Like, you know, we're looking at this is probably going to leak if it's not. There's no indications of leak now, but like it should be leaking based on what we see. Yeah. And they're like, okay, well, we could probably fix that, you know. Just hire the guy who did it the first time to fix it. And apparently he knows how, but
probably should fix this.
Yeah. So the additions that are, I mean, sometimes you're just, it's a really surprising, and sometimes it's surprising that it's still standing and working. So that would probably be the scariest ones are which you know, but the electrical, you sometimes open up and you can tell that also the homeowner's been in there, and it's just like, oh man, this is not good.
This is fire.
I don't even want to touch this right now. You know?
You just feel like you're going to be liable for something that goes wrong tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That's funny. It's funny you say that. So when that's a good question. So when you do go into these projects, there's never a place of like, man, I don't know, because if you knew that they did it, it's like, how do you word it in a sense of it's not insulting, like hey, you got something in your teeth, you know? It's like, how do you say it with being like, hey man, like I'm here to look out for you?
I think I use non-traditional workmanship, or non-traditional is one I've been using a lot lately. But you try to, you're not trying to be insulting. You're just calling it as you see it. And I know that a professional builder didn't do this, and there were not permits pulled, and you know, so you can say those things. Yeah.
This is clearly something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Or it's gonna be an issue.
And I mean, maybe it doesn't need to be fixed, but you need to be aware that that the likelihood of it not lasting as long as you want it to is pretty good based on the way the construction in the first place. So yeah,
that's so you would recommend hiring a builder and not DIYing it?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, and for me, even at my house, I'm fairly handy. I like to do stuff, but I'm just a perfectionist, and it doesn't look like someone who does it every day does it, and it drives me insane. So then I'll hire somebody to fix what I've already done, which is perfectly functional. But it's going to drive me nuts every time I walk through the door.
Because you see it.
Yeah, I know that it's not 100% right, and it drives me insane. So
yeah. It's funny. My wife would say the same thing. She's like, Taylor, you build custom homes for a living, and I wouldn't dare let you put. You know, but you can walk into a room and see everything that's wrong. Yeah. It's like, I'm not a good carpenter, and that's okay. Yeah. Like I'm good at hiring good carpenters, and you know, it's like you're good at hiring people and inspecting things that aren't done right. So, So anyway, so where, I'd love to know some of your backstory, where you're from. So one of our project managers, Kevin, came in the other day. He's like, hey, Jeremy Heffner. It's like, we were at like UT at the same time. And I was like, no way.
Yeah. So
what's
Kevin,
your like, where did all this kind of come together with Heffner, and like, what's your backstory?
Okay. Backstory is, I'm born and raised out of Fort Worth. But I I was my profession was strength conditioning. I was a strength conditioning coach for 20 years at the college level, at Division I level. I worked at University of Texas, which is where I would know Kevin from, University of Georgia, and then Baylor for 13 years, which was my longest stint, which is what brought me to Waco and why we're still in Waco.
No kidding.
So I was with women's basketball at Baylor. I worked for Coach Mulkey, and then I worked for 2 years with Coach Collin, the new head coach now, who I have a great relationship with, both of them still. So that's what I did. We love Waco. I'm from Fort Worth. My family lives in a little town called Woodbury, just outside of Hillsboro.
Okay.
So it's about 45 minutes from here, from Waco proper anyway. And so anyway, I was always connected to the Waco community, but I was at University of Georgia. My brother was injured in Iraq. He had some issues. I felt like it was time for me to come back to Texas. I got a job at Baylor, 40 minutes from my family. And so anyway, that's what originally brought me here. Fell in love with Waco. My wife and I got married our first year here in Waco. She moved here from Georgia, which is where I came from, but she's originally from New York.
Okay.
She absolutely loves Waco. She loves the community. She loves the friends. Our friend groups here, and she's a counselor at Midway High School. But she loves Waco. I love Texas. Although I enjoy visiting New York, I want to remain in Texas. And so since she loves Waco, I was like, we didn't go to LSU with Kim. We stayed here. We were going to make it work because I didn't know if I had a job when Kim left. Luckily, Nikki hired me, and I got to stay on. And anyway, enjoyed my time with her. But I have a family that I want to be present for, and college athletics does not lend itself to that. So how I got into this business was my wife and I had flipped, I guess you could say, 3 houses in the past, and we never flipped any of them to sell them. We flipped them. We just like old houses. We like big trees. We like woodway. So we buy a house, and then as Waco's grown, people started offering us money for them, and a lot more than we had in them. So then we sold it, did it again. And so I made a lot of contacts in the area, and kind of, and just through the process, meeting home inspectors and things like that. It was just something I felt like that I had the capability of doing. And so, my last year at Baylor, I would get up at 4:00 every morning and do 2 hours of coursework before I went to work.
Okay.
And did all that. And then I took some time off at the end of my time at Baylor to go do ride-alongs and in-person work. And then, when I left Baylor in May 31st and opened the business a month later. It was July 5th, actually. It was a month and 5 days.
Okay.
I didn't want to open it before the 4th and then just sit around and do nothing. So,
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's how that happened. And, it's been a blessing. But the other thing, besides the flipping, we've just been ingrained in the community, and like it was really something important to us that we wanted to be a part of the community. And I felt good about my relationships in the community, because you can't start a business if I don't believe so. At least at my age, you can't do it without having community relationships. And the community is like so far has just come through in a huge way. I mean, it's been a blessing.
Waco's a sweet spot. I feel like we talk about that on like every podcast. Is Waco has, I grew up here, and again, we feel like we've hit on this a few times, but it's almost like there's no way you can't find good people to be around. I mean, whether it's your church group or it's like a work group or whatever it is, people you're around. Waco's sweet, and Waco's growing too. And there's something special about it, because you've got, there's lots of entrepreneurs like ourselves, and then you've also got, schools and churches and banks. So obviously the infrastructure is here for newer businesses, and Waco's it's a sweet place. I don't know what Georgia's like, but Waco's just, it's a cozy place to build relationships, grow a business. And
I think that's what I've been here for 15 years, and that's exactly what we found in
15 years.
Yeah. And we love it. I got here in 2010. So,
okay.
So, it is, it was, and I think Baylor has a lot to do with that. Being at Baylor for so long, that was part of my initiation into the community, and just wonderful people top to bottom, all the way around. And then as you reach out into the community, I mean, it's like the people just keep getting better and better. And it's, it is. I agree with you. It's a sweet spot. And it's
sweet.
When we first got here and we didn't have kids, and we'd go up to Austin and stay for a weekend. I mean, almost every month we would do that. As Austin continued to grow, those weekends became Waco weekends, and we're like, we're not going back there anymore, not for a while. One, couldn't afford it, but so many people.
It is.
So many people.
It's, gosh, we've even looked at expanding our construction company towards Austin, because everything between Dallas and Austin is just, it's closing in. And before you know it, it's like you'll be on Google and Austin clients are looking for Waco inspectors, Waco builders. And I think that's what you're starting to see. Is I built a house for a client this last year out of, that built their house in West, but they moved in from Austin, and they were just riding back roads one day looking for houses. We had, one that, I'd say last year, is a few years ago, had one that was being framed, and she said, "Oh, are you interested in selling this?" And it happened to be one spec home. It's the only spec home we've ever built. And she said, "We've got to get out of Austin. It's just way too busy." And so you started Heffner Home Inspections what year did you start it? 2015 or? No,
2023.
23. Okay.
I'm 2 years in right now. Yeah.
Okay. So just recently.
Yeah.
Man. And there's so much detail. So I didn't reach out to you about it, but we had a client that was, interested in doing a renovation, and I said, "Oh, sure. Have you had a home inspection done yet?" And she says, "I have, actually. Let me send it to you." They just bought the home, and I get it. And it's Heffner Home Inspections, and it's a home over on Concord, and I thought, "Oh, this is great," because we, as a builder, we love to look through those things, because it really it protects us from, oh, we didn't know there were rotten floor joists, or we didn't know that there was going to be, this bad wiring, or whatever it is. And so it's interesting, as we start looking at home inspections, you have such a benefit to having those. And one of the things, I almost tagged it on our Instagram, and I might still do it, but it's like 49 pages long. So the amount of depth that you guys put into those home inspections, or that you put into those, is unreal. I forget who I was telling the other day. I was like, they're so long. Yours are so long. It's like, man, I'm just going to take a break, But that's
realtors, if you're listening, don't pay any attention right now.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay, I figured they love that stuff. Well, I guess on the
it depends on which realtor.
Depends on which one. But I found that to be so nice, because it protected us when we meet next week.
Yeah.
I have a really good idea of, like, hey, the flaws of the home, and you do a good job of also. I noticed that a lot of you said, like, this is a kind of a priority thing. This is
You've kind of categorized them.
Categorize it, within the project of, like, this is what I would probably really focus on. I think there were some screws in the panel or something that were, you're like, I wouldn't put that kind of screw in there. It could fault, or so I find a huge benefit to that. And so what would you say to someone buying a home? It's like, you would highly recommend getting an inspection report, I would think.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, for lots of reasons. Obviously, you want to know what you're getting into. I mean, if you're buying anything, you want to have a pretty good rundown of it before you make that purchase. And it's, for most of us, it's the biggest purchase we'll ever make. So I would definitely But even if it's a newer home and there's nothing wrong with it, or there's very little, there's going to be something wrong with it, but there's very little wrong with it. It's like, why not do an inspection anyway, just so you can compare and contrast, you know what I mean, from what's happening in 5 years, or, we talk about, I was talking about this with Austin yesterday or a couple days ago, but it's like, you have a brand new roof, but I get in the attic and there are all these moisture stains on the decking, well, if I mark those and you have that report, 5 years down the road, your roof starts leaking, you're going to be able to say, well, hey, wait a second. These are new moisture stains. They're not the moisture stains that he had reported on. So we do know there's a leak. I mean, just something simple like that, or there's moisture staining in the sink cabinet. I just note it. No big deal. Probably a previous leak. Maybe somebody just overflowed the sink. I don't know. But now there's more moisture stains, or, it's a great tool that you have in your arsenal as you get ready to purchase the home, but also as you get ready to live in the home.
Yeah.
And then the way we do things now, we're all going to remodel it.
That's right.
We're all going to remodel it. So yeah, why not have that information so your builder has it? I think it's good information to have for the biggest purchase that you're probably ever going to make.
So you'd say even if, so a client told me the other day, and matter of fact, we sent them your number, and she said, but we're going to gut the whole house. Is it really worth getting an inspection report? And I said, I probably would.
Yeah.
I think it's worth every bit of it to know that if you're going to gut it, it's like, this is one more thing that you have to document that needs to be fixed versus us kind of gambling the risk.
Yeah.
Would you say the same even with?
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to take it from the studs down.
So yes. And I have a story to tell that I'm not involved in other than it happened on my street.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, a family bought a house. They did not get an inspection. They were going to gut it completely. So they went in, the contractor went in, and started gutting it. They were taking all the sheetrock off the walls. They get in there, the entire right side of the house is eaten up with termites.
Oh my gosh, I've seen.
They ended up tearing the whole house down.
Oh no!
They tore the whole house down, and they used part of the foundation, but they expanded the home and added on to the foundation. But now it's still in process 2 years later. So the buyers, I don't think finances were an issue for them. But for anybody else, you go to buy a house and you end up having to tear it down. That's not a gut remodel. I mean, that's an entire, additional home expense. So yeah, I mean, and that's something, and it's in our neighborhood, in an old Woodway neighborhood where all the houses, they don't look the same, but they're all built similar and they're all sturdy. And you would have never in a million years thought that from looking at it from the exterior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And would a home inspector have caught how bad it was? I don't know. Because I don't know if they would have, but I would rather take my chances with them finding that,
It's worth it.
Yeah.
What would be one of your, from like home inspections, like if you could go in and look at 3 things, what would they be? Like what would be your top 3?
Well, I mean,
maybe that's a loaded question.
Yeah, if you're talking, but I look at it from how much is it going to cost the buyer in addition to the purchase of the house, right? So the biggest thing is, number one for me is water. You don't want moisture in your house. If you get moisture in your house, bad things happen. Deterioration, wood rot, and then obviously mold, so we don't want moisture.
Right.
So your roof is a very important component. Is it done properly? How much longer is it going to last you? I mean, you're talking 10 to 15, depending on the type of roof, $30,000 to replace it,
Right.
So, so that's a big one. And you want to keep moisture out, and that's the best way to do it, is making sure that your roof covering is solid and installed properly. Moisture along those lines, grading and drainage can be an issue. I'm not saying it's not an issue, but it's not as big of an issue. Most of the houses are slab on grade.
Right.
But if you have a crawl space, then it does become an issue, especially if you have duct work under there or anything like that. So you know what I mean? So it does become an issue. So I would say the first thing is moisture intrusion. Let's make sure that the house is sealed up tight and that the roof is on, and then you're starting to look at your other major systems. If it's slab and you have cast iron drainage, you need to get a sewer scope done. You need a plumber to take a camera in there and make sure that thing's going to last you another 20, 30 years, and you're not going to have to get in there and bust up your slab 2 years in. So, plumbing in a slab, that would be a major concern for me. But then, your electrical system, is it 100 amp service from 1950? I was in a house yesterday morning that had knob and tube wiring that was still live. Oh. They had a brand new panel.
We see it all the time.
A brand new 200 amp panel that was inspected by the city. And there's still live knob and tube wiring.
Allowed that to stay.
It was an Airbnb.
No kidding.
Yeah.
This wasn't the city of Waco.
No.
Yeah.
So I was under there and I'm looking at it, I'm like,
there's no way.
I'm looking at its relationship to the panel, and I'm like, wait a second, this looks like this is and not just tied in, but taped
right
in. So I'm just put my little sniffer on there, and I'm like, oh my
These are the
goodness.
things you don't want to touch.
No,
You
so
just
I'm
kinda
going
look from
around
afar,
and
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
I touch is live, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
that really caught me off guard, But electrical system, I mean, that's going to be, that's going to be a huge component, and it's also a safety issue.
It's a big safety issue. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then your HVAC system in Texas. I mean, like you got to have that. You got to have the cooling aspect of it going. So, and the cost of it, 7,500 to 15,000, like somewhere around there. So like those are the big things that I try to hit. I would say, your roof covering, your electrical, depending on the style of the build, your plumbing, but then your HVAC system. So
it's funny you say that. So plumbing, it's a couple of years ago, we were doing a project for a client and renovated the entire home. I mean, they put a lot of money into this house, and we didn't forgo look, and now we do this, but we didn't put a camera in the line or do a static test on the plumbing. We moved them in, and then the night that they moved in, there was no inspection report on this project. There was a hairline fracture underneath the porch, and so we got a phone call that night, and she said, hey, our plumbing's backing up, etc. And so we got out there, put a camera in the line, static test everything. Obviously, there was something wrong because we didn't get the pressure test back that we needed, and sure enough, the plumber had put the camera down in there and found out where it was, and there was backfall on one part of, again, we'd gutted the house, but we kept a lot of the original plumbing and just moved drains where we needed them. So it was existing, but the backfall in the backyard was, half of it was through the interior part of the slab. So we had to go back, cut it out, what we needed to, bore holes underneath the porch and remove all of that. And then removing all of that created voids in the dirt. So now you had an erosion control issue because it was open a couple days. We got a big rainstorm right in the middle of it. Water had got underneath there, and then it created foundation issues. So all that to say, learn from our mistakes.
Yes.
In hiring an inspector, because it's worth it.
Yeah.
Now it's like we pay a plumber. Gosh, I mean, a few $100. He goes in, he puts a camera in the line, static test everything. And early on in the project, before we ever start, we say, hey, we've got an issue here. If you got an issue with your plumbing, or if you've got an issue with whatever it is, underneath your home, you've got knob and tube, etc. But now that. Yeah. Because they had moved in. I mean, a beautiful, beautiful home. I mean, one of our favorite projects. And they're great clients till today. I mean, it was totally nothing anyone could prevent. But, I mean, we could have if we would have done the due diligence of checking it. But it just goes to show that extra mile to pay for that is so helpful.
Yeah. It is, and it's a relatively, your average home in Waco, I'm not sure what it is right now, but I would guess it's between $300 and $350. And it's like you're going to pay a home inspector $400 to $600, and he may recommend a sewer scope, which is going to be an additional $200 to $250. You know what I mean? That's and it's right. Like, so you're all in for $750 on a $350,000 house. I think that's a really minor investment to just give yourself the best opportunity to make the best decision. And most of the time, the home inspectors, you're going to get your money back from them because they're going to find something that you can negotiate on. You know what I mean? And a $200 test to avoid $10,000, $15,000 of foundation and plumbing work. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer.
Or more. Yeah. I would say it's a minor fraction to what you'd pay. Because like you said, there's always, you go back to the buyer and you say, hey, or the seller, you go back and say, hey, this is what we're seeing. A lot of times they'll work that in, like you're saying. Absolutely, yeah. So it's worth it to do it.
Because they didn't know. I mean, they're not trying to sell you something bad. They were unaware of it.
They've been there 30, 40 years. They had no idea.
Yeah.
So you probably see a lot more than we do, but new homes today, we're doing a lot of slab on grade is probably a lot of what you're seeing, but you also inspect a lot of pier and beam homes. What are some of the things that you're seeing within pier and beam homes that are to look out for?
Yeah. Well, your sheathing or your subfloor rot around plumbing pipes. I mean, if it's a crawl space, that house has probably been there for at least 50 years. You know what I mean? And so the chances of some type of drain pipe leaking in that 50 years is almost 100%. So just making sure that if it has leaked, it's not rotted out. I mean, moisture stains are one thing, rot, termite damage, that's another thing, you know. So that's a big one. The crawl space ventilation, like as people add on and remodel, they start to cover up the vents. So we're not getting any airflow in there. We're almost always going to get moisture at some point in time, you know, unless it's just, I mean, you just are, especially like where we live out in Woodway. I mean, there's always going to be something draining somewhere from above. You know what I mean? So you're going to get moisture in that crawl space. And if you don't have good ventilation, things are going to start to grow and things are going to start to deteriorate. You know, with the cold snaps we've had the last 5 years, you know, that plumbing should be insulated in there, you know? And it's almost, I would say 75% of the crawl spaces, they're not.
They're not.
Yeah. So that's something, but, yeah. And I mean, the other thing, like the great thing about crawl spaces, you have access to the plumbing. So, you know, I tell people, like, I still recommend, if you have cast iron drain lines, getting them scoped, even if it's a crawl space. I mean, it's going to be much less of a repair, but it's still, why not know that going in? Like, oh man, these lines are great. You're good. Don't sweat it, you know, but most of them aren't. And it's like, hey, they're going to be fine, but the plumber may just tell you, hey, don't flush anything but toilet paper down there.
Right.
You know? Like, don't flush the wipes that say flushable.
That's right.
They're not.
They're not.
Especially if you have cast iron drain lines. They are not.
Right.
We found out that firsthand.
Yes, we've also found that.
When our daughter was born, we found out. You know, the first like 2 months of her life, our plumbing backed up like 3 times. You know,
oh my gosh!
And my wife's like, I'm not flushing anything I'm not supposed to. Just these flushable wipes.
It's not flushable.
Yeah,
you can't flush that.
Yeah. They're lying to you.
Don't do it. It's funny. So we don't. What's the sad part is we've had a couple clients recently ask, "Do you build pier and beam homes?" Are you inspecting much of like the newer? We don't do much.
I haven't inspected a new pier and beam home yet. Yeah, like not a new one. No.
I think there's one builder in Waco. He built the house for. Are you familiar with? Is it Lula Jane's?
Yes.
So there's one guy, older guy. I don't even know if he's building. It's been probably 6 or 7 years ago. We did some work for him on this project, but you're not seeing a lot of those. Yeah. But they are nice. There's convenience to them because you've got access to everything. I mean, plumbing. You got something go wrong in a concrete foundation. When you find that, I mean, you're jackhammering concrete.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Like restressing post-tension cables or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot more work that goes into it.
For sure.
So what are some of the bigger challenges that you've seen in the Waco market starting a business? Or has it just been, you just jump right into it and it picked up?
So my story is my story, but I didn't jump right into it and it picked up. No, sir. That didn't happen.
It never does. Yeah, it didn't work for us either.
But I will say, like, I, for a year, was preparing to become a home inspector. And so I did that, obviously, with my education. But I also had started meeting people with the intention of becoming a business owner, you know? So, like, I was expanding my network 6 months to a year prior to even opening the business, you know, with the intention of, hey, this is what I plan on doing. And even just like builders, electricians, like anytime I had a chance to meet somebody, I was introducing myself. I wanted to, because I knew coming in. So first of all, I'm 47 years old. So I started this business when I was 45, and I had the goal of, at 2 years, I wanted to be a 5-year vet. At 5 years, I want to be a 10-year vet. And at 10 years, I want to, you know, probably be the best in the area. Like, I want to be a 20-year plus vet at 10 years, you know?
Right.
And I couldn't do that by myself.
That's right.
So I wanted to build a network of people that had the knowledge that I didn't possess. And so I do not now. Now, people probably are really tired of me texting them questions, but I do not hesitate to ask questions.
Yes.
I do have a Rolodex, so I rotate through HVAC guys. You know, so I'm not asking the same person every time, but like I want to provide a good service, but also like there's no way that I can have a 20-year knowledge in 2 years. So I'm trying to rely on people that do have that knowledge. So I would say that really helped me. And one of the things that I got from my last career is, or my previous profession is, I was managing people. So it's really unique being a strength coach, because back in the day when I was doing this primarily, you were in charge of the program for 6 months out of the year, and then your head coach was in charge of the other 6 months, So,
really?
Yeah. Well, so basically like after the season, like I had them all off season on into preseason until we went into, our 20-hour weeks. Like I basically had all of the time.
Right.
Now that doesn't mean, obviously like when I was working for Kim, like she was obviously the boss. That's not what I'm saying.
Sure.
But like your project managers, you know, like they're running the show.
That's their show.
Yeah. And so that's what I was her project manager for the off season. So you get to manage people. You read all of the business books, the good to great, one of my favorite books that I read was Never Eat Dinner Alone.
Yeah.
So just stuff like that. And so what was really exciting about me, because I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, is taking all this stuff that I've been teaching these athletes about running their business, their life, their brand, or trying to impart what little knowledge I had. And getting to do it myself, like it's like go time, baby. You've been telling everybody how to do it. Let's see how good you are. Yeah. So that was really exciting to me. I guess I have not answered your question at all, but no, it was slow. It was slow in the beginning. I would get calls from realtors that said, "Oh yeah, man, as soon as we get a sale, you're our guy." And I'm just like, but I'm sitting at home.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Those, and even now, like I'll have slow weeks, and it's like I was talking to another inspector on my way here. Trying to troubleshoot a problem that I had at a house, and I was like, man, some weeks I'll just be rocking and rolling, and it's like I'm having trouble keeping up. And I'm stressed because the whole reason I got into this business was to spend time with my family.
That's right.
And then there are some weeks where I'm sitting at my office out of my house, and we have an office. We have this huge island, and that's where I love to sit.
I do it too.
Because we've got lots of windows, and it's just sunlight. So I love sitting there. And I am just sitting there, and I don't tolerate caffeine well, but I love coffee. So I'm good for 1 cup every day, 2 cups if I'm working really hard. If I touch 1 ounce more, I'm gonna start shaking, and then anxiety kicks in. So So I'm like sitting there on my 3rd cup of coffee. Haven't worked in 2 days, and I'm like, does everybody hate me?
Who am I?
Did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? Is everybody in the outside real estate world talking about me today? Because I'm such a failure.
It's funny you think it's an entrepreneur's mindset. You're always you want to please everybody, right?
So no, it has not just been a straight shot, and I'm certainly not where I want to be. But again, having the community and building the relationships and really trying to create the network prior to even starting the business, I think has helped me out, So, and also I just love Waco, and I love the people. So like I've always just been really grateful to be in the community. And I know this is Waco. I was with Baylor women's basketball when we were winning national championships on the regular, and I think they will again. In the near future, but I'm just saying, so like people knew who I was just from that, you know what I mean? And so that kind of gave me a leg up. I got to meet people, I got to meet bank presidents, I got to meet people that I just would have never met on my normal daily life, you know what I mean?
That's right.
So it was not like this. It's been more like this with some really low dips, but I've had some really, really high highs, you know what I mean? So like, I did an inspection. The one yesterday with the knob and tube wiring. I found some things. There had been an inspection done on it a month ago. And they had access to it. And I found a lot of things that the previous person didn't find. And this was for a very long-term reputable realtor, and they were like, they said, I'm so impressed.
Dang, I didn't know there was more things. They expected you get 20 pages, and then Heffner comes back with 40 pages.
And I'm like, and they were like, man, this is good work. And I'm like, that's just, one, they're doing a lot of business, so there's a good chance that they might use me again. So that's great from a business standpoint. But it's also like, for someone who's been doing it for a long time to give you a compliment, that I mean,
Feels
you
good.
need those because those valleys get pretty low when you're sitting at when you're sitting in the kitchen and you know, your wife's like texting you like, "Hey,
you working today?"
no, she's like, I know you're not working. Can you do the laundry and can you go to the grocery store? And I'm like, I'm trying to run a business.
That's right.
She's like, well, it looks like you're just sitting at the kitchen table right now. So
just waiting on my my meeting. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. And it's like you've been in this a year now. I mean, a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And I look back too. It's like all of a sudden time just starts to, like you said, some days you just feel like you're like, here we go, need to hire a guy, and then some days you're like, oh, maybe I missed the mark, or
Yeah.
But then you look at the graph, long term, and you start to see, it's like
hopefully that trend line is running in a positive direction. Yeah.
Like when we like. Now we're so blessed and fortunate. But we've done the same thing. It's like, how do you find good community to wrap yourself around to where you're like, hey, yeah, Heffner inspections whenever you need a home inspection, I got you, and then it starts to take traction. But I don't know that I've ever met anybody where I'm sure you've got some of those that, just for them, but I know for us, it was the same thing. It was, like, hey man, trying to build this house. Like, I've got this question. Like, feel like I really felt the client, or really did this wrong, messed up. How do I get out of this, or whatever it is? And then that just comes with it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, there's been some panic moments for me where I'm like, oh, did I do something wrong? And I think, and I've been really lucky. Like it's all you try to cover your bases, and I don't. Yeah. The one thing that you would get from me, and I'm certain it's from you. The same, like I'm going to give you my best effort. That day, like I'm never going to cut a corner. Not. I feel so obligated to the client. Like if I screw this up and their house sucks and they didn't know it and it's my fault, like
Heffner's fault.
I'm gonna wear that for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And we're in a community where like we all know each other. You know? So like, but I'm just saying, like in my heart, it'll just crush me. Yeah.
It's your last name.
Yeah.
It's the reason you probably use your last name. It's the reason it is my last name.
So I wanted to start the business with, it was originally going to be called Freedom Inspections. And it was kind of like what do you call that? A double entendre or whatever. But it was like I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So it represented freedom to be with my family, and all that. And I'm a American. I'm a Texan. I believe in freedom. You know what I mean? So, but I was talking to a friend who's a longtime realtor in town. Kind of, we did all of our housing deals with him, and he said he started his own brokerage, and he named it a certain thing, and he's like, man, people are always asking me what the name of my brokerage was. If I would have just named it Jeremy Heffner Brokerage, they'd never have to question it. And I was like, man, you're so right. That's so dumb. Like I'm over here trying to be fancy and cute. And,
you got this cool name.
And I'm like, but if my last name is the same as the company's name, people are going to know who it is, like right off the bat.
Right.
And so that, I mean, it was just when I walked out of that lunch that we had together, it was at Guest Barbecue. And I was like, yeah, that's a done deal. All these logos are trashed. I'm starting over from scratch. It's going to be, my name has to be in it, like, and he was like, man, I just couldn't believe he said that because he's so successful. He's like, people can never remember the name of my company. And I'm just like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Because you're successful.
Yeah.
And if they can't remember a successful person's name, what are they going to do with me? So,
right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how that came. Yeah.
It's funny you say that. So I meet with our team all the time, and it's like we want our clients to have, as you said, it's that white glove experience when they meet with you, or we build them a custom home, or you inspect their home, or whatever it is. You want them to remember that forever, and it's like when we go into, a local restaurant or whatever it is, they was like, oh, that was Vaughn Construction. Like they built my home. They did a good job. So I think using your last name, one of the things you get from that is, one, you have to really honor that brand.
For sure.
Because they'll know Heffner Inspections is like, no, those guys, they cut corners, or they're going to know Vaughn Construction is, oh yeah, that guy, he built our house and we took off with our money, and he, and just failed us as a builder. So it almost gives you like that. I mean, entrepreneurs already have like this mindset of like to do well, at least most of us do, but now you're carrying the legacy that your kids are going to carry around, and your wife, as she's at the, store, or,
for
like,
sure.
oh, that's Heffner,
Yeah.
So you have, another company I started, we did not use my name, and I'm wishing we also did, because it would have we still give it our all. I mean, who wouldn't? But it's like, you want those companies to be known as, oh, that's that last name, man, that's who I want to do our project, or that's who I want to. And so it does give you, there's something to it. But anyways, what do you do for fun?
Well, I was a strength conditioning coach, so we've got a little gym in our garage, so I train. I won't say every day, but most days. Yeah. I bow hunt.
Bow hunt, okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
I am now. I'm new to it. I'm 3 years in, but I'm so addicted to it. It is so much fun. And I didn't say I live in Woodway, but I'm in my backyard every day letting arrows fly. You know what I mean? So
decoys.
Yes. It is. Oh, it's so addicting. I love it. I love it. And I mean, you get to be outside, like you're outside the entire time. So that's wonderful. I've got a crew that I cold tub with. So we do that.
Are you like an ice bath?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I did it once, and it was awful.
Yeah, it is. It is awful.
Okay. Cold tub.
Yeah, so I've got a group of guys that do that. We do Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 5:30. So I went this morning, and usually get done about 6, and then have about 15, 20 minutes to drink coffee and kind of fellowship, and then I got to get home to cook breakfast. So for my daughter, but so those are probably my outside of that, I'm just dadding and husbanding. Those are probably my 3 big ones. Yeah. Just I love the archery. I love the bow hunt.
So much fun.
Yeah. So that's and then hanging out with friends when we get a chance.
Friends, family.
Yeah.
What we always ask, what's a good book you're reading now, or what's one of the previous books you mentioned one a second ago about. Wasn't Leaders Eat Last? It was
Never Eat Alone.
Never Eat Alone.
And that was a really good one for me. I read it. It was one of the first like self-help books that I ever read, but it just stuck with. I think the guy's name was Ken Ferrazzi or something like that. But the author, but it just talks about like, we breaking bread is one of the best way to build community, and it's like, why waste a meal? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you have I think one of the stories he tells in the book, this is a long time ago, so I'm going to butcher it, but he had a friend come over, and they sat on the floor on a crate with like a piece of wood over the top of it, and they had dinner like that. You know what I mean? And it's just like, but you're constantly building relationships, and you're going to have to eat anyway. Why not do it while building a relationship? You know what I mean?
So good.
It was good. Yeah. Okay. So I'm a member of I guess I feel bad. When they listen to this, they're gonna feel bad. One of my other hobbies is I'm a member of a book club.
No kidding. Okay.
So it's just 4 dudes.
Yeah.
And we read very slow, both like acutely and chronically. Like I just am a slow reader, but it takes us a long time to finish a book. But so the group is called Sage. We're all in our mid to late 40s.
Okay.
And it's Christian oriented.
Cool.
But heretical.
Okay.
Like we're reading Richard Rohr, and the first book we read was it was Falling Upward by Richard Rohr, and it just talks about the second half of life. Like first half of life, you're following all the rules, you're doing everything. The second half of life, if you're growing, you're kind of breaking those rules, because those rules were made for people who didn't have the knowledge and experience that you've gained, and now you have the ability to navigate life on your own terms, and likely from a different perspective. Whereas before it was for you, now it's for everybody else, right? So, that was a great book, and we've kind of gone in this progression. The last one we just read was by John Mark Comer, and it was called. It's basically, I'm going to mess the title up, but it's How to Be Like Jesus, how to live like Jesus, how to act like Jesus. And so it goes back through and just talks about, like, we have all of these rules as Christians, and none of them have anything to do with Jesus. Like, Jesus didn't talk about any of these rules. You know what I mean? He was just out there doing the thing.
Right.
He was out there building the relationships. He was out there meeting the least of us. He was out, you know what I mean? And so so that's what we're doing. And the one we're reading right now, we just started it. So it's brand new. We've only read the first chapter. It's called Healing What's Within is what it's called.
Healing with. You've read some good ones.
Dude. These guys. So the guys that I'm in the group with, they all worked in churches around here.
Okay.
Whether they ran Young Life in Waco, or they were the music director at Highland Baptist, or the youth director. Like, they've all been in churches. Now two of them have their own nonprofits. One of them runs a landscaping company.
Okay.
But so like they're super. They're just
authentic.
They're just so knowledgeable, you know. Whereas I grew up in church, but like when I left for the Army at 17, I was done with church. I just had a bad experience, and I was, you know, what do they call it now? Deconstructing. Like, that's what I've been doing for like the last 30 years, you know? So, anyway, so we've read some really good books lately. Yeah. I'm also reading another one that's called, Germs, Guns, and Steel. And it's just basically talking about how, civilization has evolved, and these are three of the key components.
Really?
Yeah. So why did you have all these powerhouses in Africa, you know, back in the day, just doing amazing things, and they didn't expand, and we had this colonization from Europe that did expand, and so it uses these people that haven't been touched by technology as kind of the, what do you call it, when you're doing a study, the benchmark, but benchmark, you know, like the other one, you know, you have the one that's being, my brain is dead right now. You have the other one that's actually performing, and then the one that's not performing. You know what I mean? So it's the blind of the study. Yeah. So anyway, it's super interesting. Now I'm a slow reader, and it's like a 500-page book. So Guns, Germs, and Steel, and then Healing What's Within.
Healing What's Within, and the other one was To Be Like Jesus, or something.
John Mark Comer is the author for sure, and it's How to Be Like Jesus. I think it's How to Be Like Jesus, and then it goes through 3 actions, like live like Jesus, act like Jesus, you know, be like Jesus or something.
Are you like a physical reader? You read your actual like physical books?
I do both. These are all physical books.
Part of the book club. It probably makes the most sense.
I'll crush some Audible while I'm working too. For sure. Yeah. Just depends on how hard the house is. Like newer construction, I'll really listen to a book. An old house, I'm like, I may have to listen to music because I can't. Take a lot out of my head. Be pulling any brain activity away. You know what I mean? So So Empire of the Summer Moon. Have you ever read that one?
Is that a good one?
Yeah, that's an Audible one, but it's a. Joe Rogan recommends it all the time. It's like his favorite book.
Okay. What's it called?
Empire of the Summer Moon. It's about Native Americans, but they're all in this area. Yeah. So like I always listen to it on Audible when I'm headed out I always hunt in Marshall, Texas, opening weekend. Okay. Because my buddy's got a place out there, and we've just been doing it for like 20 years. So when I'm driving out there, I always listen to it because you're literally driving through the area that they're talking about.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. So like the Netches, and I mean, it's just, so it's such a good book. It's so good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I love books.
Text those to me.
Yeah.
Those are some good ones. Yeah.
I read, I won't say a lot. My wife is a much faster reader than me. But I always have 3 books on my bookshelf. So,
you do. Yeah. I think I didn't read a lot either as a kid. I absolutely hated it. Yeah. I think it's when we started the business, you want to learn, right? You want to shape your brain to be like receptacle to new things and like understand things. And so our team just started reading, kicking off the new year, we started reading a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. Have you read it?
No, it was just recommended to me by a local business owner in town.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark Waldrop. Do you know him?
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah, but he just recommended it we go to a home church, and he's at part of our home church, and he said, he just recommended it. He said it's unbelievable,
dude. It's I think I'm probably 3/4 of the way through. Yeah. Put that one on the list.
And that's about he's a chef, right?
He's a chef. Yeah. He has like a hot dog shop up in New York or something. Yeah. And but he goes on to talk about the experience is not about the hot dog. It's about you. They're going to remember you forever, long past the taste of that hot dog. Yeah. It just goes on for like as a business owner, I wanted our team to be able to relay that experience to our clients. Then I wanted our project managers to be able to relay that experience to like our trade partners we work with. So there's a bunch of good books, but that's a good one. I've liked it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I will. I mean, you're the second guy who's told me that in a week. So it's actually on my wish list on Audible. So like and I've got like 3 credits just burning a hole in my pocket.
Share those with me. Yeah. Well, man, thanks for coming on. So Jeremy Heffner, Heffner Inspections, you're personally doing some of our stuff too. You're working with some other project managers. Jeremy does a great job, extremely detailed, not to just say that because he's on the podcast, but does a great job of overseeing houses. And again, I read through his inspection report. They're extremely detailed. And man, where can people find you? Yeah,
HeffnerHomeInspections.com. I'm on Instagram as well and Facebook under the same name. My personal is @GratefulHeffner. And I just use that one because it's the one I'm just not real good at social media. So that's the one I've always had. So yeah. But absolutely. Yeah.
It's your last name. It's not Freedom.
Yeah. It's not Freedom. It's not Freedom, but it'll do. It'll do. Yeah.
Well, hey man, thanks for coming on.
Man, my pleasure.
So much fun getting to chat with you.